Hello, BA. Welcome back to Unabashed You. It's been a couple years, but it's such a pleasure to have you back on our writer series.
I am so excited to be here. When you sent me the email, Rechelle, I kind of did a little whoop whoop. So,
How fun is that? Oh my goodness.
yeah,
So we've been catching up a little bit before this part of the conversation, and now we're gonna get to know you a little bit more and then get to our deep dive. All right. If you could try out any job for a day, what would it be?
I gave this some thought. Nuclear physicist.
Oh my
Seriously?
That is great because, BA is very, very smart on the whatever side of the brain that requires. As you can tell, I'm not on that side of the brain. Whatever that side of the brain is, that's very analytical. You're very good at that side. So nuclear physicist, and is tell me why?
I've been studying quantum physics and I'm researching a couple of projects and I'm finishing a project, which we'll get to in a little bit. But am completely fascinated by nuclear fission, fusion, the idea of 0 point energy, entanglement, which means people can, you could be two places at once. It could be instantaneous, and that opens up a whole new world where science and the sacred meet and what is reality. And nuclear physicists deal with all of these questions, ethical questions, technical questions. And it's kind of like, well, we can build a nuclear bomb, but should we?
Oh yeah, very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, good for you. Is there a book that made a big impression on you? I mean, either in more current time or as a kid?
Currently, it was probably 3 or 4 years ago. I had a friend suggest a book by Tara Westover entitled Educated. And
Oh, I've heard of
yes, oh, oh. So I've read a lot of good books. And Tara's book, there was so much relevance and symbiosis between,
Mhm.
I really connected with her as a writer and as a human being. And I thought, wow, I'm not the only one who had gone through these things. And I stayed up all night long to read her book. It turned daylight. I was sobbing at about 4 a.m., just sobbing. And her book
Wow.
it touched me so deeply. And I'm a big cheerleader for the underdog. And to know what she went through being raised in the environment in which she was raised, and then moving through, because I don't want to spoil the book if anyone else wants to read
Right.
it, and then what she was able to accomplish when she
Mm.
didn't even have a birth certificate
Mm.
and had no high school diploma, and what she was able to accomplish is just such a testament to the viability of the human spirit.
Right. Oh, that's beautiful. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for that. And that I've heard a lot of really good things about that. Okay, this is a kind of a fun, light little question. Do you wear a fragrance?
I do. So I wear a fragrance called Signature, and it's made by Vinnie Louise, and it's produced in Nashville, Tennessee. So the basic ingredients, and I want to give Vinnie Louise a shout out here because I love the scent. It's light, it's refreshing, it makes me feel yummy when I put it on. And it has oak moss and lavender and Palo Santo. And it's kind of
Wow.
a natural oil sort of uh, perfume, if you will, or cologne, and I love it.
Okay, so it's called Signature and it's by, tell me his name again.
It's Vinnie Louise,
Oh,
and I
Vinnie
think
Louise.
Vinnie
I'm
Louise.
assuming that's or is that a woman? Vinnie Louise?
I'm not sure. I
I've got,
haven't looked it up, but
I've got the Vinnie, then I got
and
the
then the
Louise.
Louise.
Oh,
So
yeah, on the left.
maybe it is a
Yeah.
gentleman. I'll
Ooh, I
have to look
like that.
that up.
It's fun to just kind of learn different things about people. All
Mhm.
right, something on your bucket list.
Oh, going to Istanbul. So
Ooh,
I recently discovered it's so crazy. So ancestry, I didn't know, who my father, and I found out later. So I've been tracing heritage, and as more people take these tests, you get your results can change a little bit.
right.
So all of a sudden, my Caucasus region DNA skyrocketed. So I'm like, I have this high percentage of Turkish, which in Italian, it's Turkish and Italian now is how they do it. So it's like 46%. And I said, what is
Wow.
up with this? But it actually goes through Crete and that eastern seaboard of Turkey. And it was really interesting to me. So I've always been attracted to the bohemian sort of decor and the colors. And so India, Tibet, Nepal, and Turkey. So those sorts of patterns and styles have always been appealing to me. And I used to think maybe it's because it's exotic and it was so different from my Midwestern upbringing. And that's probably part of it. But now I want to learn more about my heritage. And this
Right.
is very exciting. So
Well,
yeah.
and it is interesting to think that, that um, your attraction to that really could have had roots, in many years gone by before you. I mean, that's just very fascinating. I
And
like,
going back to the quantum physics, it could be what they term epigenetic memory that's even in your
ah,
DNA. So that could be part of it
ooh,
as
oh, I
well.
love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Ooh, what's that called again? Epigenetic
Memory,
memory. Ooh,
epigenetic memory.
oh,
Yes.
gosh, that's so fascinating. Okay, so an author you admire.
Oh, see, I've thought about this. I have so many. I can't name just one, but I will say this.
Okay.
The authors I admire most are the indie authors that really go out there and do it themselves because they have a dream. You face rejection in the writing industry. It's fiercely competitive. It can be very cruel. It's kind of a bit like Hollywood. You go to casting call, rejection, rejection. A lot of people don't realize classic book like The Wizard of Oz was rejected 33 times
Oh my
and
gosh.
then self-published. The Alchemist faced rejection after rejection.
Oh
So
my gosh.
I have a lot of admiration and respect for the person who can do it and do it right. And when I say that, I mean you're professional about it. It becomes your career. So it's not just you throw a book out there, you need formatting, you need beta readers, you have to pull ISBN numbers, you better be getting a Library of Congress number. You need someone who can do a professional photo. A lot of people don't know that you can't just slap any font into your book. You have to buy those fonts because they're copyrighted. And you also have to it's the same thing with a book cover. You just can't find a picture that you like on the internet and put it on your cover. You better not be violating somebody's, intellectual property, either creative work. So, you have to pay for that. And I just admire people who can put the investment and the belief into their writing and then put out a great product. I have read indie author books that just blow out of the water some of the factory produced books, if you will.
Right. Wow, that's a really good point. And that's a really thorough look at that.
Mhm.
And that's a great answer too. I mean, this is just, meant to spur a conversation. I mean, it's,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Well, now we're going to take our deep dive, BA, and this is series is being called Thinking Through My Fingers, a writer
Okay.
series. I mean, there are so many, I've come across so many interesting people who have taken their experiences and done all kinds of things with them. And I thought it would be a great and worthwhile series. So let's start here because I think this is so interesting. Why why do you write? First of all, you've written fiction and now you're doing some nonfiction, correct? So why do you write?
I wrote for catharsis and redemption. Now I write for curiosity and elevation to learn something new. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, look, gosh, see, you are a writer. Look at those great words. Okay. Wow. Okay. And then I'm very fascinated and curious about the actual writing process. I mean, is there a certain time of day? Is there a certain do you do it on the laptop? What do you have like a ritual or any of that?
Oh, yes. I just sit down at the computer and I write it all out in one fell swoop, and it's perfect. Anyone who believes that, that is a big fat lie.
Right.
It is it's a process. So some days I bake, some days I clean the house, some days I do everything but right. Um, and other days it will just flow. So I don't get up, I know Stephen King had this thing where it was I get up at, 4 a.m. and I write till 10 a.m., or he had set hours. And I know authors that do that and that works for them. And that's the important thing for a writer. You have to do what works for you. So because this is about creativity, this is about fun,
Right.
it's about play. Yes, there's frustration, there's irritation, you have arc and plot issues, you go off track from I make an outline. I go off the rails sometime, and my editor says, come back here. So um, I'll burn sage. I will meditate. I will go for a run because I like to run. I will do yoga just to, and that's just to sort of get those juices, those creative juices flowing. And some days it doesn't come, so I put it away. And some days I put it away for days, and
Right.
I'll go back and read it fresh, and bing, the answer will come.
Hmm.
On how to fix something or say something, or whoops.
No, that's really, oh, are you
Oh,
there?
I'm okay.
Okay. No, that is really, see, this is part of what I'm so curious and find fascinating is that different people do it different ways. And I find it interesting to find out how different people do it. So your way is an inspired way. When you feel it, then you go with that. And then other
Yes.
times you set it down, you're like, no, I'm doing other things today. The next time I feel that, I will come back to it. I think that is exactly what works for you and wonderful. So what's
Yeah.
your current book or piece about?
So the current book is regarding quantum physics and consciousness, and it's a bit where science meets the sacred. So wherever you have quantum physics, it always inevitably butts up against the spiritual. And let me give you an example of that. Non-locality, which is that spooky action at a distance Einstein spoke about. When you have a photon and you're not observing it, it will scatter. That's one example. It'll scatter. But the moment that there's an observer, whether it's a camera or a person observing, it collapses and it becomes laser like. And that's in every situation. Um, Atoms don't really touch. If I'm touching my desk, which I'm doing right now, and you can't really see that, I'm not really touching it. Everything is space. Everything may be connected, according to David Baum, and this could all be kind of holographic, and there's an interconnection. So it gets a little loopy, it gets a little weird. There are questions you can't even ask in quantum physics because they make no sense. It's like asking if a pencil is married. You, you can't, it's the most mind-boggling thing for a human being to wrap their head around, because it's like trying to wrap your head and your arms around God. And you can't define God. You can name God, you can worship God, you can't define God. But like quantum physics, God is everywhere. and there's energies. So that's you have these wave packets of energies. And Nikola Tesla was right when he said everything, if you can figure out and understand that everything is about frequency, energy, and vibration, then you will elevate. Yeah. So
Wow. Well, this is, yeah, that is, my mind is a little boggled right now. I can't, you're right. It does feel very big. It
it
does.
is. And
But
it's
it's so
been,
interesting. It's so very interesting. And I like that everybody gets to pursue the things that interest them. And then hopefully they want to share it then, with the rest of us in a way that we might be able to understand partially at least.
I have to tell you, so one of the things that blew me away, there was a doctor, her name is Dr. Marina, and she decided to study blood under an EMF frequency, electromagnetic frequency microscope. So
Okay.
she took her own blood and decided to study it. And this was based on another Japanese doctor's study of water. So she looked at her blood under this microscope and she set ill intention in herself. So she made herself feel bad
Oh gosh.
on purpose. So the scientists looking at the microscope at her blood, which was disconnected out of her body,
Wow.
became all clumpy and lumpy and disorganized. So then the scientist said, let the doctor said, let's set good intention, like we're going to pray over it. So they set good intention on it. It sparked with light,
Oh my
her blood.
gosh.
And hardly anyone has heard of that experiment. That's amazing.
Yes.
Somebody from the CIA got wind of that in the water study. So I think his name was Dr. Matsumoto. He studied water and realized that if you take a water drop and you set intention on it, if you say, I hate you, it'll get all mangled. If you tell it you love it or you set good intention, it'll look like a snowflake.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
unbelievable. So the CIA guy said, I want to study DNA. So they were able to look at DNA and they would show people these films in another room while their DNA was over in this room.
Oh
And when
God.
they emotionally reacted, the DNA instantaneously, and that's part of
Oh,
quantum physics and that entanglement and non locality, that it would instantaneously react. This
wow.
is what I'm writing about in the next book. And it would instantaneously react. So he wasn't satisfied with that. So he took the DNA 250 miles away.
Oh my gosh.
Instantaneous reaction. The distance did not matter.
Oh my gosh.
So that
It's,
kind of lends credence to the voodoo effect and how much belief,
oh,
that lends a lot of credence to belief. And this is where I'm like, and the placebo effect. I talk about the placebo effect, and this is why, to me, this is what I learned. This is why God works. And that's what I've learned from this, that this could not be an unintelligent design.
okay. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So are you writing this for somebody like me that doesn't really know a lot about this sort of thing? Or is this more for minds who are already in that arena?
Well, that's the question.
Okay. Okay.
I'm trying to write it for the, I don't want to say the average mind because I think that it takes so little to be above average, but a lot of people, like, I consider you, Rechelle, above average. But it can be heady and it can be technical. So those are the kinks we're trying to work out, is what sort of analogies, metaphors, without overdoing it and making it sappy, how can we draw all this together? And it is a very large project. So it's
Oh
been,
gosh.
yeah,
It
but it's
sounds
been
like it
fun.
because you're taking something that is at least in average realms. And again, I hear what you're saying about average. I like, well, yeah, we don't have a good word for people who are not famous and people who are non-celebrities. I mean, it's everyday, average, ordinary. Those are all awful words.
Yeah,
I don't
I've
like
never,
those words.
yeah, I've never liked that because collectively I get it. You can look at a whole bunch of trees and say, oh, there's trees out there. But when you connect, when you are mindful and without overusing that word, but if you're aware that
Yeah.
when you look into someone else's eyes, if God is the Alpha and the Omega and is omniscient, when you look into somebody else's eyes, you see God and you
Yeah.
see yourself reflected in that too.
Yeah.
And if God is everywhere, that means he's in every single human being.
Yeah.
So,
No, that, yeah. And so we don't have a good word for that. And you're absolutely right. I agree with what you're saying about, we're made in, his image, all of the beauty there. There is no ordinary in that sense at all, at all. Okay, so what do you hope? So I can't wait to hear more about this when you get to that place of who it's going to be for and how you're going to completely roll that out. I'm really intrigued. What do you hope readers take away? I have a sense, but I want to hear from you.
curiosity to go further, debate,
Ah,
excitement. And one example, so I have beta readers. One of these gentlemen is a venture capitalist, and I was writing about the harmonics atmospheric radio program where our government tried to push the ionosphere up. And I read, and without getting too technical, all of that energy they send up into the ionosphere bounces back down.
mm,
But no one's ever going to admit that that could impact or may impact our weather systems. Now, we are told that is conspiracy theorist hogwash.
mm-hmm,
Is it? And I
mm-hmm.
go into why it may not be based
Okay.
on declassified files. But this gentleman said to me, I'm responsible for people's money and I'm responsible for making investments and managing large sums of money. And I read this. He said, so many places in this book, I have read this and thought, in his words, he said, I couldn't think of a better word except dang. It was so out of character for him. And he said, so I started writing that word in the margins. And he said, when I got to that chapter on harp, I got angry. I got angry
Mm,
because, and I thought, she's right. We are the stewards of this planet, and there is nowhere else for us to live. Where
mm,
else are we going if we do
right,
not take care of this place?
right.
There
Wow.
is nowhere else.
Okay, so you already have beta readers, so you're pretty far along then.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
okay,
Not
wow.
a structural issue, but we're working on that.
Okay.
Part
Well,
of the
so it sounds like you're going to continue to write. I mean, you're now a writer. You've written three, I believe it was a trilogy.
Mhm.
Remind me of the name. I want to say Red Wing or
Red Bird. So
Redbird.
it's the Quanta Chronicles trilogy. And within that trilogy is Redbird, X Point, and Emergent.
Yes, I think yes, that totally rings the bell now. Okay. Now, in addition to those three, which go together, and you're working on the quantum physics book, have there been any other books?
Yes. So between those projects, I wrote a book called Loosen Your Lotus, and it's about finding your way to discovery and peace. So, Loosen Your Lotus, I talked about some of the trauma I faced as a child, not from the, oh, I'm a victim and read my book to feel sorry for me.
Right.
It's a, hey, I am, if I can get through this and I'm no better or different than anybody, you can do it too. So, I just offer things for people to think about. share some of the things that work for me and even say it may not work for you. It's like the
Right,
writing ritual we talked about earlier.
right,
It's different for everyone. But then I talk about the subconscious mind and the conscious mind and neuronal programming, but not technically, not in a
right.
technical way. And Loosen Your Lotus has a lot of thoughts about faith and people that have inspired me. So I write a little bit, sort of like what you do with the podcast. I write about a couple of people that I have found to be very inspirational for me. And that was Loosen Your Lotus, finding your way to self-discovery and peace. And then the second nonfiction I wrote is called How to Hug a Ghost. And that is coming to terms with your past and forgiving yourself. That book really focuses a lot on forgiveness so you can elevate. And yeah.
Gosh, I think a lot of us need that. I mean, we go through things and we hopefully can arrive at that place of forgiving others and then the self-forgiveness piece, which I think sometimes we save for last.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what do you learn through writing? What do you learn through it? What have you learned? What are you learning?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, okay, let me word that slightly differently because that's such a big.
Yeah, I'm trying to, I don't want to
Yeah,
go
what
into,
do you learn about, I'm going to say about you, because I think that's, I mean, obviously you've learned a lot of information, there's been a lot of catharsis, but what have you learned about you?
um, resilience, the strength, the possibilities for reinvention every single day, that I can change direction and nothing's going to happen. Nothing bad is going to happen. Um, it's okay to drop. Yeah, there was one book I started to write. I was almost 200 pages in and I scrapped it. It wasn't, I was forcing it. I had to realize, but now it's the lessening of sensitivity. I used to be so sensitive and defensive, and that is just lifted. So
Mhm.
I would say again, reprogramming sounds so robotic, but the writing has really helped me put myself in other people's shoes and not be so black and white or judgmental.
Yes, that is so beautiful. That is, because we are only us and we all, go through this life just as one person. But if you can reach out and think about how it might be for someone else, I think that's a really important part of why we're here, not just, thinking about and serving ourselves.
Everyone has a story, and I have met so many people where I would have never again, because we walk around this world wearing masks and we rarely hug one another. And we're like this.
Yeah.
And and if we look up and connect, the stories people have shared with me, I never knew, one lady that I knew, I didn't know her battle after she lost her sister to
Mhm.
disease. I another lady who lost her husband, a lady who had been a just this marvelous PR person up in New York and had done a lot of work with NBC. And yeah, I never, that a lady who worked as a nuclear physicist, some of the work trials people go through, you just don't know. Somebody with a child in ICU. Um,
Right.
yeah, it's just everyone has a battle, but everyone also has a beauty. There's something wonderful about them or something in their lives or something they can offer you or you can give to them. There's such opportunity for reciprocal exchange of love.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I don't want to miss, you know, I I'm not saying I'm going to go out and start throwing flowers at people, but um, yeah, I'm taking time to enjoy and connect with people in a
Yes.
way I haven't done before because I was too, I don't know, self-centered, insecure, and probably a little both, maybe.
Yeah, and I think that for me, part of the aging experience is being more able to do that. That's how I feel.
Yeah, and that's a wonderful thing too, is I thought the aging would bother me more than it did because in my younger years there was a lot of emphasis put on looks, and now it's like, pfft, well, quit dyeing my hair. I don't even care. I'm like, I like it. I'm going to embrace this and see where it goes.
Right, exactly. Well, where can people find you? Where can, if anybody wants to catch up with you, where can they?
Sure. Yeah. The best place to go is bacrisp.com. You can find me hanging out on X way too much, x.com. So, because I have groups there that really offer, they're really great about sharing research on the things that I'm into and yeah, but bacrisp.com is the best.
Oh, good, good. And is there anything that you would want to say in conclusion as we wrap up here?
Yes, I'm so happy to see you again, and you look great. And
Thank
I'm
you.
just thrilled that you contacted me and we reconnected. And and I hope you ask people too. I think so. I'm gonna offer something like the best interview of yours, and like who was your favorite person that I interviewed on the show, but not you. So I would say, of course, I'm going to be biased and say my husband, Dave.
Gosh, your story is so sweet. David, her husband, reached out with the most incredible email, probably one of the top five I've ever read in my life.
Oh,
Think of how many emails we read. And, just sharing about his wife, and it was so lovely. I couldn't help but immediately say, well, yes, of course, I'd love to have a conversation with your wife. And then I asked David to come on too. And he's like, no, 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 it's not about me. And I'm like, oh, but I exactly want to have a conversation with you because of the humility and the love and just that feeling of authenticity just came through everything he said. And so he was also a guest, and that was a lot of fun.
he is a gem, and he has anonymously and very quietly, he connects and communicates. He's also done a lot of work on himself, and he started earlier than I did. And he just, it, I, as far as husbands go, I found the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow in him because he's just
Well, that's
awesome.
great. And I know he feels the same about you.
Don't tell him he still makes me weak in the knees when he walks in a room.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, that's wonderful. What a pleasure this has been. So grateful to see you and catch up. Just feel so honored to have spent this time with you.
Oh, you too, Rechelle. Thank you very much.